So today is Shabbat Chazon. It is the last of the Haftarot of Desolation, which is Isaiah 1, which is a prophecy of the destruction of the temple. This is the last Torah portion, the last Haftarah portion before Tisha B'Av, which actually begins tonight, right, the 9th day of Av. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about Tisha B'Av, keeping in mind Isaiah's vision and the consequences of Israel's failures to keep Torah. On the 9th day of Av, the temple was destroyed. Here, I've got a list. You need a list. This is a brief list, but so many horrible things have happened to the children of Israel. These are just some of them. So the 9th day of Av, Nebuchadnezzar concluded his siege of the city of Jerusalem with the destruction of the entire city and the destruction of the temple. And subsequently took the children of Israel into the first exile, into Babylon. Also, on the 9th day of Av, Vespasian's forces under Titus conquered Jerusalem and destroyed the temple again on the same day, on the 9th of Av, in the year 70. In the year 132, the Bar Kokhba rebellion was concluded with the conquering of the besieged city of Beitar, and more than 100,000 Jews were killed on that day alone, and their bodies were left to rot outside the city on the ground. In the year 133, after the fall of Beitar, the Temple Mount was plowed under in an effort to make certain that the temple would never be rebuilt again. So many things. Again, this is just a brief list. In the year 1095, the First Crusade, under Pope Urban II, 10,000 Jews were killed in the first month after the announcement of the crusade. He announces the crusade, word is spread through Christendom, and so the reaction is to kill Jews. In the year 1290, the Jewish people were expelled from England. In the year 1492, on this day, the Jews were expelled from Spain. In the year 1914, World War I began with the killing of Prince Ferdinand. On this day is a war that decimated the Jewish community because the Eastern Front was fought right on top of the Jewish Pale of Settlement. In 1942, the Warsaw Ghetto deportations to Treblinka extermination camp began. Before that, in the year 1940, on this day, Hitler's final solution to exterminate the Jewish people was enacted. In 1994, Buenos Aires the Jewish Community Center, was bombed. 86 dead, 300 wounded. On this day, in 2006, Gush Katif was abandoned in the West Bank, and we withdrew from the West Bank for a peace that never came. This one day, on which so much has happened to the Jewish people, not only is a horrible day, but reminds us of all the other things that have happened to the Jewish people through time. And realistically, It began with the destruction of the first temple and has continued ever since. There are people who would ask, why do we care about a day where the temple is destroyed? Many people ask this. And to them I say, where is your compassion? Where is your compassion? No other nation on earth has had to undergo, through thousands of years, the trauma and suffering that the Jewish people have had to endure. Where is your compassion? No other nation on earth has survived it. And where is your compassion? It is virtually impossible for anyone to truly feel someone else's pain. As an individual, we all know people that have undergone personal trauma, physically, psychologically, and we can never know their pain. The Chinese have a saying, no one can put their foot in the same river twice. The river is different, and the person is different. And yet, we can have compassion. We can look at an individual and say, no, I don't know. You can tell me that I can't possibly understand. And you're right. But I can have empathy. I can have compassion for you. And I can feel for you. And you know what? It's time for the world to stand up and recognize. It's time for the world to have compassion. They may not know the suffering, the pain, the anguish, but they can have empathy. They should have empathy. They should not listen to the lies being told about us, that have been told about us every single day for the last 2,000 years. The lies don't change. Instead, it should be replaced with compassion. This is Hashem's desire. Now it's just up to people. It's people that have to do this. And so we take a day to remember the pain and the anguish of the children of Israel that Yeshua foretold, that he foresaw. That because of sinat chinam, because of baseless hatred, the temple was destroyed. And Israel's relationship with Hashem was ever altered. The world can have compassion. The world can look at us and say, we're sorry for what you're going through. We're sorry for what you're feeling. They can only recognize this if we recognize it. This is the day that we do this. All the dead, the tortured, the massacred. It is altogether fitting that we recognize also one young lady in particular who was killed on this day, July 17th, born. Her name was Chana Senesh. Hannah Senesh was a Jewish girl from Hungary that grew up before the war. And she grew up in a Reformed synagogue. She grew up in the largest Reformed synagogue in the world, the Dohani Synagogue. If you ever visit Budapest, there's a memorial to Hannah Senesh in the synagogue. But she had such a heart for Israel and the Jewish people that in those very, very difficult times, she immigrated to Israel. She worked on a kibbutz, so she trained in defense. And when the Nazis came, she and a unit of other Hungarian expatriates, because they spoke the language, were parachuted into Hungary to help save Jews. She was captured and tortured to give up codes she did not break. And finally she was killed right before the Allied armies, Russians in this case, liberated Budapest. She's recognized as a hero in Israel. And Roni and I visit her grave every time we go. It's on Har Herzl, if anyone wants to go. And we leave a stone for her. The pain and suffering of the Jewish people is something that is always in our hearts. I wear black stripes on my talit in remembrance, not of a building that fell down, not of a building that burned, but of the thousands upon thousands of Jewish people that have been killed, tortured, through the centuries. The most joyous day of the year, the day of a wedding. We end a wedding by breaking a glass. Because even in joy, we still must remember everything that has happened to our people. And the world needs to know this. The world needs to remember. So tonight from sundown, or late sundown, because of Shabbat. So when we see 3 stars, we begin to fast. And we fast through tomorrow evening. There are only certain things we should study. We shouldn't really study Torah. We should study the book of Aydat, the book of Lamentations. We should study the book of Yov, the book of Job. Because this is not a joyous day. This is a day of lament. And so we read the book of Lamentations. We study the Midrash about the Lamentations. And we know from the writings of the sages that when Israel suffers, God suffers. That when Israel cries, God cries. When Israel mourns, God mourns. He's not abandoned us. He's with us. Always. In victory and in tragedy. So I wish everybody a tzom kal, an easy fast, and a Shabbat Shalom.